when we look at the pre-Meiji prints of Edo, the predecessor to Tokyo, we think especially, and I think many Westerners are most familiar with, the great series by Hiroshige, done at the very end of his life in the late 1850s, called 100 Views of Edo.
Right.
And that's really the ground base, the inspiration for many of the early Meiji periods who were depicting the birth of modern Tokyo. But tell us about that great precedent, and particularly Hiroshige.
It's an amazing series of prints, and you're right, John. That series by Hiroshige was fairly widely disseminated in the West, too, and had great influence on Western painters. And so why 100? 100, hyaku in Japanese, is a concept borrowed from the Chinese, and it means fullness, it means completeness, it means prosperity. You see images of 100 children or 100 this and that, 100 painters, 100 actors. So printmakers borrowed on this conceit to begin to describe urban settings, particularly images of Edo, because this was the new and emerging de facto capital from around 1600 forward. It's interesting to note, and this is particularly true of Hiroshige's series, that many of these series are commissioned after a disaster. Fire and earthquake were big deals, as you know, in pre-modern Japan, and indeed in modern Japan. So Hiroshige creates this beautiful series of 100 views of Edo right after a tremendous earthquake, fires, tidal waves, called the Ansei disasters, the Ansei period being early 1850s.
I remember being struck with that vivid phrase, the flowers of Edo, referring to the constant flames that consumed the city.
Exactly. So we can look at these prints, as gorgeous as they are, is something of a Chamber of Commerce promotional idea of the city is coming back, the city is beautiful, the city is wonderful and normal. But you're right, that is probably the most significant mid-19th century example of this style or genre, and it's one that sets the stage for modern printmakers and painters roughly from about 1870 forward, literally into the end of World War II.